Today I am showing you how to build this modern A-frame cliff base in ARK Survival Ascended using the Arkitect's Paradise cosmetic as well as the LF seamless wall for a beautiful modern aesthetic with a very clean design. It's a decently sized base with the option to use the bottom layer both as a dino pen as well as of course your main crafting area depending what your exact needs are. And if we get the staircase all the way to the top, we'll find more space there for a cozy kitchen, windows that can open up if you want so you can fly in and out, and of course a great place for a nice and cozy bedroom. Hello there survivors, and welcome back to another build tutorial in ARK Survival Ascended. As always, if you enjoy seeing videos like this and you want to continue to see more builds like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I really do appreciate all the support, and of course, as always, feel free to leave your suggestions for future builds down in the comments below. And if you want to support the channel even more, you can always consider becoming a YouTube member. So this is the size of the foundation that we will need for this A-frame cliff base. So it's rather simple. It's just almost a perfect square. It is 20 by 17, and of course you can build this wherever you want. I of course designed this a little bit around being on a cliffside, as we will see with one of the sides of the platform, but of course you can easily adjust this to be used anywhere where you like, because the base itself can definitely be built everywhere. So once we have the entire foundations down, of course we have a few additions to make. First of all, here on this side is where we're going to add like the last little bit of the platform, which is going to be 2 layers of ceilings going all the way across the side. And of course this works best on the side, kind of on the edge of a cliff. At least that's what I did for my design. I quite like the way that looks. Unfortunately, it can be quite difficult, of course, to find the perfect spot. So again, you can also just extend the foundations with 2 layers of foundations if you're building this anywhere else. And then of course we want to kind of make it look like this is being supported, so we want to have those 2 layers of roofs there kind of acting as all supports. We can do the same thing over here on this corner. Of course we don't have to go as far because there is already landscape there. Then we want to leave a gap of 4 before we add another one of these supportive layers in, and then again a gap of 4 before we add another part of these supports in as far as we can, depending on the landscape, of course. And once we've done that, we want to see if we can fill in the sides of this so that the supports will look a little bit more complete. So we just want to fill in the gaps like that as far as we can. Of course, sometimes it probably will not let you place everything unless you go into Ghost and clip it in there yourself, but you can see some of these, at least on vanilla settings, won't allow to be placed, but we can do it as much as possible. If you have a lot of these gaps where you can't place it and you're not an admin that can go into Ghost mode, you might just want to leave the sides open, which will be fine. It will still look kind of supported, just a little bit less so. So in the end, that's just going to add a little bit more room on that side of the building. And now we've done that, we want to concentrate on one of the sides. I'm going to start here on the left side. So there on the right side is where I have extended my platform. This is where I'm going to start counting. And I'm going to go from this corner. I'm going to go in by 4 before I add in some staircases here. And it's going to be a staircase that is 5 wide in total. And then, of course, it is time to start the A-frame itself. So from this corner here, we're going to go up by 14 roofs. So that is quite a bit. But yeah, we need a little bit of height here for the building that we're about to make. So 14 high in total is what we need. And then we want to add 1 here to the side. So this is 2 now, and we want to have 16 in total. So we're just going to keep going until we reach 16 long here on this side. So that's kind of like how wide the A-frame is going to be. And here along the side, we can actually also fill in these roof pieces just to make it look a little bit nicer and have the A-frame actually flow into the ground instead of kind of awkwardly ending right above it. And we can also raise up these all the way along the outside, definitely not there, just to make this a little bit wider. For now, we're not going to fill in the entire A-frame because of course there's going to be some adjustments and some things to make it look nicer. We are, however, also going to bring up this side all the way, and of course we can make sure that it raises up to be 14 high as well, just the exact same height as we did for the first part. There we go. Remove this. And then of course it also means we can bring across this line all the way over to the other side so we can meet them up, and we can make this too wide as well, just so that we kind of have a basic shape for the A-frame. And especially because this is the side of the A-frame where everything is going to be normal and intact, and the other side of course there's going to be a lot of adjustments to make it look a lot nicer. Then it's time to start a little bit on the main structure. So we're still here at this side of the building, and we want to start here along the edge, filling it in with 5 walls to begin with, and we want to raise it up until we almost intersect with the main A-frame, line it up perfectly, and then of course we can have our slope walls in between so that we remove any gaps that might be there. Then we can have a pillar at the very end to kind of make sure that there's a nice separation there. And then we can also actually continue across the corner. Here we can take out some large walls to save on some structures. We can actually place 3 of them right next to each other, and then we can also raise up another pillar. This can be the same height as that one interacting with the A-frame. We can raise up these walls a little bit more just to make sure that this structure is complete. It's going to create like a nice little corner here on the inside to work with. And there's actually quite a few more of these pillars that we want to make to create some more structure. So we'll leave a gap of 2, and then we'll raise up a pillar by 7 in total. So just like this, another gap of 2 and another pillar just over there. We can keep this going for quite some time. We want to have a few of this to almost the opposite corner of the building. This will be the final one, so we should have a few of them, kind of giving a little bit more structure to the shape that we're working with. Then we're going to go around the corner and add another one here and another one right over here in the middle. Then we'll leave a gap of 5 before we place another pillar right here. Then we can have one more. We're just gonna keep this going for a little bit, and then another one right here. So now we have 3 of these pillars on both sides of the larger gap in the middle. So that means we can go around the corner once more. And now basically we're gonna mirror what we have on the opposite side. Well, not completely mirror, but at least for these bigger pillars, we're gonna add the same amount right here. So this will be the last pillar on this side for now. Well, it's also the last one that could be 7 high in general. And this is kind of the skeleton for the first layer here of our build. Okay, so we're going to go back inside. We're going to take out some walls. You could use secret walls if you want to have like, or secret doorways if you want to have something behind it. But for now, we're going to add 6 of these from that corner, just because it's a lot more practical to have a straight wall going here. And then we want to take out our roofs again. We want to bring this up a little bit until we cross the line where we have the wall. That is it for now. We just want to have this support ready to go. And we also can fill in the sides with our sloped walls just to make sure that this looks a little bit more like a proper support for the building. We can do the same thing over here at the other side of the support. There we go. And then we can give a little bit more shape to the room that we're working on. First of all, we'll take out a gateway. We will add it right over here so that we have a way in and out of this place. We can also add in the actual gate itself. And I'm going to skin it with the clear glass skin from Arkitect's Paradise, because you can see it will turn into a beautiful window. And we're going to have quite a few of these windows in here. And then from this gate, we're going to leave a gap of 4 before we add in another pillar that can be also the same height here as this wall. Then we can bring this out a little bit forward, and then of course we can have another pillar right over here, which will be 7 high, so that will line up with the bigger pillars we've already made on the outside. And then over here we actually want to take out I'm going to use a metal wall to signal it's different from the rest of the structure, and I want to build this up all the way to the same height of the pillar. I'm going to go all the way around it and just fill in this entire wall like this. And the reason I'm using metal to signal this is different, you could also use greenhouse glass if you don't want to use cosmetics, but I'm going to skin this into our window. So again, we're just going to add this all the way through to make sure that we have a lovely internal window from one room to the other. Then we can go around the corner here, and we can also fill in this first bit with our metal walls, because once again we're gonna turn this into a beautiful window like this. And then we can actually continue this wall a little bit further. We basically want to follow the shape of the A-frame itself, and of course we'll turn the rest into a nice mirror too. We can raise up this pillar by just 1 more. And then we can actually start filling in the rest bit of this room. So we want to fill in these walls. Then we can go around the corner, bring it all the way up to the front. And we can actually raise this up a little bit more. So we want to make this 8 high in total, so it meets up with that pillar over there. And we can then also make the rest of this wall that same height, which means we can raise up that pillar and we can raise up this pillar, because this part is going to continue for a little bit longer. So we can have 2 more large walls here and raise another 2 on top of them, so that we basically have the end of this room all being these very large walls. And it gives you a little bit of a separate space. Of course, not completed yet, because we still have a big hole on this side. We better start on this. We want to start a wall across the bottom all the way up to, well, where it almost ends. We want to bring this out here on the front too. So we're going to go all the way across the bottom here as well. Then here at the front, we want to add in a layer of roofs, and we're going to bring this up for a little bit. Just underneath where these large walls end. So right around here is where we want to have, well, 2 ceilings just for now. And of course, we're going to tie this all together. We're going to have another roof right next to it. Then we can have a layer of ceilings right above this to fill this all in. We can also take out our metal walls and have a layer of them all the way to the very end, and a slope wall to finish this. We can turn this into a lovely window, and this is the part where, at least in my build, I placed like a industrial forge clipped into the wall just so that it was visible from the outside. Of course, you can't do this in official. It's up to you whether you want it. What you might want to do is remove a few pieces so you can place it in the middle, and then place back the places, clip them through it. But again, not necessary for the build, of course. We can take out our ceilings once more, bring them out here until the very end. We can add in a large wall here at the end just to save us on some resources. Fill up another wall just above it and add in these 2 ceilings so that this is now connected to each other. Then here at the front, of course, we can add 1 large wall here at the corner, just again to save some structures. And we can start filling in the rest of the shape just like this, adding in some slope walls here at the end to make sure that it all blends nicely together. And we can see that this corner is now starting to come together as a whole. We can also take out our slope walls and of course start filling in the side like this to give it a little bit more context. We want to go up until here just for now. And then we can also continue here on the inside. So first of all, we can place down some walls here to again make sure that this is just a normal wall that we have. And above the wall that we already placed here, we can of course have a few of these slope walls. And then we want to of course only add them here at the top part of this wall. We can take out a large wall right there and then fill in the remaining parts with our normal walls just like this to make sure that this whole wall, this whole window is filled in. And you can see you get quite a nice view from this side. Then here at the top of the window, basically we want to bring across our ceilings or roofs all the way across like this. Of course, we can also fill in the top of the support here, and we can have one layer right next to that. We can also have a layer here at the bottom so that from the inside we at least have one layer of roofs before we have anything else. Then for this part, we're going to start making the first window in the roof. So we want to have 6 of these windows. We're going to, of course, switch those metal roofs to be an actual window itself so we can see inside. And then for this part, we're just going to fill in the remaining pieces of the roof just like this so that this is now complete and we have a nice window there. And on the opposite side, we're going to do a similar thing. So bring across this bottom layer, have one layer next to this supportive beam before we add in our window. So the window is going to be the exact same shape as on the other side. We can, of course, change it all to let in some light and then fill in the remaining part of the A-frame roof for now for this section. And that pretty much at least gives us, well, this side room that we have in the A-frame. And in survival, that means you should be almost safe. Of course, there's still a little gap at the top, but it should be getting pretty safe now if you're working on this base in survival at the same time. Now, before we continue with the rest of the build, we're going to add in a staircase. So right over here, so one from where we have that gate, we want to add 3 stairs going up, and of course ending in a ceiling here. This ceiling we can bring all the way to the corner before continuing the staircase up by 2. Then we'll have 2 ceilings right over here, and of course we can continue the staircase even further, have another ceiling there, and then finally the final staircase up to the top. And then here at the top we can have a slope wall, but for the rest, of course, we can just have our railings along the sides so we don't fall down the stairs. It's not what we want, so we'll just continue to go along the edge, add in our railings all the way, and this means that we'll have an easy way to get up and down once we start working on the next layer of our build. Of course, first of all, what we want to do is kind of bring across these walls all the way up to the end over here, and we can do the same thing here in the front. So again, we want to bring this all the way over to the front of the building, and underneath we want to fill it in with our ceilings. So this shape is coming all the way to the front of the build, and we also want to fill in the top here. So from one side to the next, almost all the way to the end, except the very end itself. And then finally here over on this side, we can bring this wall all the way across to the other side of the build. And then over here, we can also bring this on top of the pillars until the very end here, of course. And then once we reach the end, we actually want to have some slope walls going back down this shape. But we can also add them here in the front of this shape, of course, as far as we can go. If you can't go all the way down, you can of course also add a full wall at the bottom, and we can continue this quite a long way up here too, up about here, before of course it will also turn in these full walls all the way along the front here. Then we can fill in the bottom layer there across the build, and of course we can take out our roofs and bring them along the bottom here on the outside. So this kind of gives us another supportive beam, gives a little bit more shape to this corner too. And of course it also means that we can fill in the top right here across from one side almost to the end, and at the final end over here we of course also want to fill in that wall. We can actually take our ceilings and we can continue them here across the bottom of this part to connect those two sides up, because otherwise it looks a little bit weird. You might as well remove this wall so that we can add another wall going across from this side to the other. Again, just to kind of repeat this process, except this one is on the inside of our building, as you can see, which just adds a nice border at the top of all of these pillars that we already placed down. And now it's basically time to start filling in this layer so that we get our next floor of the building. So we can just go along the outside here and just start filling this in. We don't have to fill it in all the way yet, because not all of those pieces will be necessary. And of course here we can kind of go around the main shape there and just have to add one layer in here. And then the rest of this shape, of course, we can just fill in freely, because that's going to be the next layer of our building. And as you can see, there's still going to be quite a decent amount of space in here. Still a lot of room to play around with for sure. So we'll just fill this all in, and there we go. But before we go crazy on the top half of our A-frame, we still of course have to fix a lot of the walls, etc. down below. First of all, let's worry about the main entrance. Now, if you've built this on foundations, you should be able to take a cellar door, a behemoth one, change it into a garage door, and it should snap to the foundations. If you don't have foundations, you want to add a beam going across the top after 5 pillars, because it will need a snap point like that. And then the remaining part above the entrance we can fill in with the walls, and you've probably guessed it, we're going to turn this into a beautiful window, including the gate itself, so that we have basically a glass wall that can open up, which is pretty nice. And then the rest of these walls we can also start to fill in to save on structures. You can definitely start with large walls all the way around the bottom of our building. You could even do that for some of these walls if you want to save on some structures. But yeah, if we go around the bottom, connecting the different pillars up with each other, you'll see that, well, this already gives a lot of the building shape. And of course, now that we've placed these down, we can of course change them to be the glass skin so that we can see the beautiful outside. And we want to keep going around the building, because this will bring in a lot of light. But of course, there's plenty more walls to place. We can't use a large wall for this top section because it's only 3 more. So we just want to fill in the last layers with our normal walls like this. And then of course also change them to the window skins, so that we can keep those beautiful big windows here, and you can enjoy the views of your surroundings whilst you're working whatever it is that you plan on doing in the base. So the same here, we can change those to the lovely windows. Of course, the middle we already did over here. And then we can continue on this side with placing down our windows and changing them into the glass textures. There we go. And then just the final bit over here. So again, we're just going to follow this across, filling in the final layers of our beautiful window at the bottom layer of our build. There we go. This last bit is slightly different because we have some slope walls as well to follow the shape of the A-frame that we're working on. And then of course we can change all of these windows to, well, pretty much finish the bottom layer of our building with a giant room, nice glass, so plenty of light should reach your eyes. And it also means that we can continue this support that we've made, at least for now, up until the next floor. And that also means, of course, you can have the supports going up there too. There we go. Okay, so here on the outside, we actually want to raise up this wall, except for the corner piece. We can all the way across like that, just to give us a nice structural wall. And speaking of walls, we also want to add it on the other side. We actually want to go from the end of where the stairs come up. Again, you could use secret doorways if you really wanted to. And then we could have one wall here around the corner at the same time. We can do the same over here, so have that one wall, and then of course having this wall go all the way across until where we have the staircase. Okay, then first of all we can bring up this supportive beam all the way to the top of the building now, just because we already know that's going to be there for sure. And then here we also want to bring in the shape along the outside. So we're going to continue these roofs going up all the way to the top and then coming back down a bit like so. And we actually want to bring it all the way down to the same height as we have this beam going across the side. Then the top of the roof, we can also, of course, bring this down a little bit further. And that will go just up to there, which will give us a better idea of the shape of the entire A-frame. And we can actually also follow along with the shape here by making sure that we have our slope walls following between these two layers of the roof all the way to the end here, right like so. And then of course we can fill in the end with a full wall. We can take out our slope walls here too. We can have two of them right next to this part, and then finally a pillar right next to that. We can have another pillar on top of that and another one right over there to give a little bit more of an interesting pattern there. Finally, we want to have a pillar here, leave a gap of 2 for another pillar, and then leave the rest of this wall open. So here on the opposite side, we want to basically do the same thing. So for now, I'm just going to bring over these slope walls, bring them back down on the opposite side, and of course we'll bring this all the way down until next to this white supportive beam. And then we can add in our roofs, of course. So we'll bring this one all the way across the top here. There we go. And then we also want to make sure that we fill in the bottom layer here to get those nice supportive beam looks that we want to have. So you can see how much this adds to the shape. We can have our slope walls right there. We can have a pillar, another pillar right next to it, and then finally the third one right here. And of course on the other side, one here, gap of 2, and another one right there. Then finally here on the outside, we want to place down that wall, bring it all the way across from one side to the other here, just like so. So yeah, then we want to fill in the base 2 layers here so that they connect back up to these walls. So basically the bottom 2 layers of these roofs, we want to make sure that we fill in all of the gaps going across this one. There we go. And then we want to start by filling in the bottom layer for the top half of the roof. Just like this. And we want to make sure that this is too wide. So we're going to expand this on both sides a little bit. There we go. Then we want to have 4 ceilings right here. So that's going to be one of the windows. We're going to have 2 right here, then leave a gap of 1, and then another 2 right over there. So this is going to add a few windows into our building. We can also bring this out all the way over there, and the same for the middle part here. So we want to bring this up by a little bit. And then here on the inside, we can make sure that this is too wide at the very end too. The same over here on the opposite side. Making sure that it's too wide on the inside. And then we want to connect this top half as well. So we want to just go across the top from one side to the other. We actually want to make this too wide. So again, we're going to go all the way across. And then of course, these middle parts, we can also just fill in all the way over here. And then the same thing on this side. There we go. That means we can take out ceilings again. We can have them over here, over there, and over here again. Just like this. And then we also want to fill in the sides here, of course. So we want to make sure that we have our slope walls to close off those spaces. So it's all a little bit more reinforced here in the top half, but it gives some really nice shapes, especially with that LF seamless skin. It's a really good skin for all types of modern builds. It's a really nice and clean aesthetic with the round edges. So now we have a few of these window shapes. Of course, we want to add in our actual windows. So we're going to fill in the roofs first so that we can change the skins of them, of course. But this will get a decent bit of light into the main base here. So we'll just fill it all in. And then, of course, change it to those nice glass textures there. And this will definitely add in a lot of depth with this like 3D roof, which I really like the effect of. And of course, now that we have the one side, we can basically repeat the same process over on the opposite side. So for one, I want to bring these supportive parts of the inside from one side to the other, just so that we can get a little bit more of this structure in place. There we go. And of course, we also want to make sure that we connect up these different pieces wherever we can. There we go. Just to make it all look a little bit nicer. Awesome. Now, whilst we have that, we can of course add in our ceilings here at the top, because we're going to create these same window shapes on the opposite side, of course. So once again, we want to add in our ceilings in the right spots, just like this. And of course, we can start filling in the roof pieces around them, basically. That also means over here, we can just fill in the remaining part of the roof, which will really help shape up the rest of the build and make sure that we finish it step by step. So we'll just go across right here to the other side, and of course lining it up around the windows that we've drawn in here. Then of course we'll take out our slope walls once more and make sure that we fill in these sides so that there's no gaps left. So we'll just keep going around with these until we have them all looking the best they can. So again, over here, we want to make sure that we fill it all in. And then the same here on the opposite side. And of course, adding in the actual windows themselves. So for now, let's just fill those in, and then of course change these skins afterwards. But this will definitely help up lighten the place in the top half of the A-frame, which is of course always a great addition. There we go. And then we can once again take out our window skin and make sure that we can actually see something from these windows. There we go. All of them are looking great now. Then back on the inside, we want to follow up with a few gaps that are still here in the staircase area. So we want to have one more wall up here, and of course a slope wall to kind of fill in that gap. Over here, what we can do is actually remove these 3 ceilings over there so that we don't have to worry about it. We can raise up that wall, and we can add in a final ceiling there so that that layer is now fully filled in. And we can also finish this wall, so a slope wall here and a full wall there, so that the staircase kind of just looks complete towards the top now, and you can use it to enter this next layer of the building. And in case you want to divide this top half into rooms, what we want to do over here is go in by 2, then we can go across by 3, fill up those walls just like this, and of course add in our slope walls as well so they meet up with each other. Then over here we can take out some large walls. We can add 2 of them right next to each other for this part of the wall. Then we can leave a gap over here, and for now we just want to fill in this shape once again. Add in our slope walls. We can also add our slope walls here to the top. And then finally, to fill in the rest of this wall, of course, what we want to do is add in the gateway. You can decide for yourself whether you want a gate in there or just leave it open like this. And this will divide the room quite nicely. So a bit of a bigger space here for maybe a kitchen or something. And then this would be a great bedroom and a place to log out in with your own personal collection. Then, of course, we're not quite done yet because we still have these windows out front. Now, there's a few ways to go about this. You can, of course, just fill it in and change these skins to glass. But what you can also do instead of using normal walls is using secret doorways, because then you could add a pin code to all of them and a keypad so you can open the entire window at once. I'll leave it up to you what you want. I personally quite like those secret window doorways. Just keep in mind that not a lot of creatures can fit between the gaps, so you can't really use it to get your flies in there, but at least you could park a flyer there and quickly get into the top layer of your base if you needed to, or of course fly away on your tech suit without having to run all the way downstairs. But again, it's up to you whether you want to have those or not. We'll see them again in the tour, of course. Oh, and we don't want to skin, of course, the final bit there. So just that is going to be our lovely window. And of course, it means that we can also do the same thing. So with or without the keypad windows here at the opposite side of the building. So we just want to start filling this all the way in across the entirety of the build. Take out our slope walls and follow along the entire shape like this, and then of course change the final skins here so that it all looks a lot nicer. There we go. Here on this side where we have all of these windows, we want to go in by 2, and then right here we want to place 2 large walls just like that, and we want to raise them up by 2 more. Then we want to go up by 2, and we can add in some more large walls right over there. And then along the sides we can add some slope walls in here just to set apart from the rest of the building. You can add some large walls on top of them just to kind of save some space. And then finally we just need one more extra layer of these walls right there to kind of add a chimney. It's just like a detail option. It doesn't add any function to the build, but it can be quite nice. What you could do, especially if you have a pyramid, because then you don't have to power them manually, is add in a fake floor, maybe one lower actually, and then you can have a bunch of fireplaces in here. And as long as you would have a pyramid with a lot of food in it, and you enable it being able to light fires, they will light the fireplaces, and you'll have some smokestacks coming out the top here. No matter what, I would kind of close off the top so you don't really can peek inside as much. So we want to use our small half pillars to kind of create a grid that's quite hard to get through, or quite annoying at least. And there we go. Just kind of want to fill in the whole top of that little chimney. And again, it's just an optional detail. It doesn't add any function, just adds a little bit of shape to the building itself. And then of course we have a few extra things that we can add along the sides here to make these walkways look a little bit nicer. We want to add some railings around the very edges of it, just to make them a little bit more safe, of course. So we want to do the same thing here on the opposite side. You could also add them at the front, depending on what you want and what you prefer, of course. And then we'll take a quick look here at the final product, the full modern A-frame cliff base, skinned and everything. So skinning it is quite easy. Most of the tech related walls you just want to skin with the LF seamless walls. The only part where I did some different things is some of these bottom walls have been painted black to get a little bit of a cooler look over here, but the rest remains the same. Also skinned all of the pillars and painted those black just to make them stand apart a little bit more from the walls. Then from the Arkitect's Paradise, where we already used the glass from, you also get this lovely wood texture for a little bit of an accent around where the staircase is. And from the same cosmetic, you can also get these skins for the chimneys. And I also added a little bit of a railing, because especially with these skins, they look quite nice. And that is pretty much it around the outside here. The final two are still the LF seamless, but the rest of the ground I've used the bunker structure skins for. But yeah, feel free to change those around. There's plenty of cool looking options here. So yeah, if you're wondering where I have built this one, it is in the canyons on Ragnarok, right over here. And the tutorial was actually just below the right side of the bridge over there. But yeah, if we take a quick look at the base, you'll see it gives you a decent amount of space. It's definitely a nice looking aesthetic that this gives you for sure. And as you can see, you can house quite a few creatures on the inside if you want to keep them safe, or if you want to do some breeding, or easily be able to take in your gathering tames. There's quite a decent amount of space here, even for your bigger creatures and your bigger structures. Then off to the side here, we kind of have the main crafting hall. So we have a lot of structures here. I added in a dedicated floor instead of just having a normal floor, which is fine. And we have, of course, our industrial forge, where it's kind of clipped inside as a feature. Don't have to do that, of course, because as you can see, you can also easily just fit in a normal forge like that. And then if we follow the staircases all the way up, we'll get to the lovely second layer, where we have the dividing wall, reusing that wood texture, and just some lovely views of our surroundings. And if we go to this side, you can see the keypad and the secret doors that open when you press the right code, which again is definitely very, very useful and a very cool feature. Not a lot of things can fit through, but a pterodon just about can. So yeah, at least you can fly around with those. But of course, also again, with your tech suit, you could easily fly in and out that way. So definitely a good option to consider. And as you can see, we have a decent amount of space here to utilize as our base, no matter what your needs exactly are. So you definitely get a lot of space here. And these seamless skins, as I said, they are just very, very nice. Just skinning everything in them would already look great, but having a few of these accent pieces, I feel like really helps, just setting it apart that little bit more. Anyway, that's going to be it for today's tutorial. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and of course feel free to leave your suggestions for future builds you'd really like to see down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video or the next stream. For now, goodbye.